105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, and 89.1 KGOH Colby. We're getting ready to start us up another hour, and I want us to start up some more fun running here. All right, ready? Here's what we're going to do. This hour, we have another book that is being given away. This book, oh man, I wish this was mine. Wish I didn't have to announce this because I'd like to have it. This book is Mother Teresa in My Own Words. This is, oh my goodness, yeah, that's why it's called that, In My Own Words, because it is by Mother Teresa. If you would like this beautiful little book, let me hold it up there. The way that you can get this book is to be the first person to call in and donate $100 or more. If you do that, we're going to give this away, and that is compliments of Heil and Ann Huguenin, owners and funeral directors of Hayes Memorial Chapel here in Hayes. If I could just say a separate note about Heil and Ann, they are such wonderful people, and they're also those people that if you're around them, you just feel joyful. They are great people, and they have to deal in that very difficult ministry with the Memorial Chapel. And so I want to thank them for being such wonderful, joyful people in our community, for filling that ministry need, and for doing such wonderful things, and for donating this book so that that first donor can get it. If you would like to get this book from us, call in and donate $100 or more, and the first person that does that will get this book. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. We are getting ready to bring in, well, actually, she's already sitting here. So, Katie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Katie Hamel is in here with us, and we're getting ready to talk with her about the Master Potter. So, I'm going to leave it a little bit at that for just a minute. Let you guys start contemplating that before we really get into our discussion, because first we're going to do one of our trivia questions. So, that trivia question, if you call into the same number as the pledge line, 785-621-4110, we'll get you entered into that drawing here in just a few hours for that $50 gift certificate to Messenger, Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts here in Hayes. Jerome and Angela Schmeidler are the owners. So here is your question. Actually, would you want to read it?
Sure.
All right. Read the question and the selections. Yep. Just don't read the answer.
Okay. What city did the Israelites march around before the walls fell down? A, Jerusalem, B, Jericho, C, Sodom, or D, Bethlehem?
All right. Would you read it one more time?
What city did the Israelites march around before the walls fell down? A, Jerusalem, B, Jericho, C, Sodom, or D, Bethlehem?
All right, call 785-621-4110 if you know that. 785-621-4110. If you got a question for Katie while she's in here, call 785-621-5061. That's 785-621-5061. We'll get your message or your question to her, or I'll even let you ask it yourself on the air. 785-621-5061. If you want to partner with us in our mission to getting to $125,000 so that we can pay our bills for the year, 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. All right. This is going to be awesome. I'm so glad to welcome Katie in here. So Katie Hamel is a wife, mother, and writer. She's the editor of Faith Magazine for the Diocese of Salina and is the former editor of The Register. She lives in Lenora with her family and is a parishioner at St. Joseph in New Amelo. And wow, that is awesome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Where are you originally from, Katie, if I may ask?
I'm from Beloit.
You're from Beloit?
Yep.
Okay, man. I actually was talking with Andrew Newald the other day,
Yep.
And just talking about a lot of the things going on there.
Yep.
So
Andrew was my high school religion teacher.
was he really?
Yep.
Okay.
A long time ago.
All right. That's where I first met him when I taught at TMP. Him and I would go to the diocesan, or whatever those things they make us go to for school.
Yep.
But anyway, yes, that's where we originally met each other. So do you get back ever?
I'm
to be
actually
able to see
going
those?
back on Sunday.
Okay.
Yep. I'm really excited. My brothers are in boot camp and they graduate today. So they're flying home. So I get to see them for the
wow.
first time in 3 months.
Well, tell them thank you for their service. Where were they in boot camp at?
Marine Corps boot camp in San Diego.
Ooh, all right.
Yep. Pretty
Okay.
exciting.
So have you been to see the relics yet, or
No, not yet.
not yet?
No, we're
Okay.
going to this Sunday though.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
All right. Awesome. I'm excited for you. I need to take my family to do
Yep.
that too. Okay. So would you like give us a little bit of a background then, growing up, what was your faith background, and how have you nourished it?
Okay. So I am a cradle Catholic. My parents, though, my dad was a cradle Catholic, but my mom converted when I was in second grade, around the same time I was receiving my sacraments.
Oh, wow.
So she really she was the convert, but she took my dad's faith and made it her own. And then when she became Catholic, our family just really, really, really embraced the Catholic faith. And when she converted is when I started going to St. John's in Beloit. So for most of my childhood, I was in Catholic school. We moved around quite a bit. I call Beloit my home, but I wasn't always living there. We kind of bip-bopped around. But I grew up the oldest of 12. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Big families are the best.
I love it. So just always was Catholic my whole life, really.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, where you said you're the oldest of 12?
Yep.
Okay. You look so young. So, and you're probably way younger than I am. So how old is the youngest one right now?
So Levi is the youngest. He is 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that does make sense now.
Yep.
All right. So I'm not going to ask your age on that. Would be a dangerous thing to do.
Don't ask that.
I may not be a smart man, but so raised Catholic. And where did you say you went to college?
Benedictine.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yep,
okay.
I know.
Well, there we go.
girl.
That's all we need to know. That's fantastic. Yep. And so, yeah, they've got a wonderful Catholic culture going on there. And so then after college, what do we then see? When do you get married? Kind of where does your life go from there? If you want to answer any of those questions.
So after college, I got a degree in economics, which was because I thought I could get a good job in that field. But really, I wanted to go to school for writing, but I just didn't really think that I could ever have a job as a writer. So I went for economics, graduated, and realized I did not like economics at all. So my mom called me and she said there's a position opening up for the assistant to the bishop for the Diocese of Salina. And at that time we had no bishop, but I was like, well, I'll just give it a try. So I took the job, and then 2 weeks after taking the job, we met Bishop Vinke. He was introduced as our bishop. And so for 2 years, I worked with him as his assistant. And then an opening came up in the communications office at the diocese, and I took on the role of editor for Register and Faith magazine, and I've done that since 2020. But in that same time frame, I was single, and Bishop knew that I did not want to be single anymore. So he met my husband and introduced us.
Wait a minute. Bishop orchestrated your marriage.
He did.
Oh my goodness.
He met Nathaniel and he called me and he's like, I met a man. I think you would like him.
What do you do when a bishop calls you? And I was like, by the way, I'm going to matchmake you.
I know.
So,
well, it was so funny too, because he was like, oh, he's tall. Like, do you like tall men? I'm like, yes, I do. I do like tall men. And he's like, he has tattoos. Is that okay? I'm like, that's fine. But so yeah,
this is great.
It was wonderful. But so he basically, he's like, here's Katie's number. I gave my number to Nathaniel. We started texting, and then we were married within a year.
Wow.
So we got married on the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes in Beloit in 2022, and Bishop actually did our wedding for us.
Oh my goodness. Well, now everybody else out there is going to be like, whoa, Bishop, what the heck?
Trust me. I've got some siblings who are waiting to be match made too.
Is your husband out here?
He is with the 2 kids. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's why. I thought maybe those watching online, maybe you can see him walking around. Is he wearing a red hat?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
might be.
That's all right. So maybe we'll get him into here to say hi later. But that is really cool. That Bishop just was a matchmaker.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you have this position then within the diocese.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that really what first kind of catapulted you into your writing career? Or did you have, growing up, were you kind of like a short story writer or anything?
Yeah.
Or
okay, so writing has been something I've always done.
Okay.
I've always loved it. And I remember the first book I ever heard was like, I want to write a book like that. It was in grade school. and it was the book You Are Special by Max Lucado.
Oh,
I
yeah.
specifically remember sitting as Mrs. Christine was reading it to us. We were all on the floor of the St. John's Grade School Library, and she read that book. And I remember thinking, like, I thought I was so smart because that book it's a story, but there's a deeper meaning behind the story. And I was so smart because I like figured out the deeper meaning, like as a second grader or whatever I was. And I just remember like going home like, Mom, I want to write a book like that one day. Like I want to write a story like within a story. And I just would like want to inspire people. And this was me as like a young grade school student. So I had notebooks and all of this stuff from my growing up years where I would write. And my mom was the one, she's like, you need to pursue this. You're a gifted writer, like do something with it. I was like, Mom, like, what do moms know? You know, moms don't know anything. So
moms are biased.
I know. I'm like, no, Mom, you don't know anything. And so I just kind of put it off. I had a passion for it, but didn't think it could ever be like a realistic job one day. But then, like I said, when I got my job as the assistant to Bishop, he kind of noticed I had a knack for writing. Like he actually noticed it. And he was the one who was like, well, there's this opening. You enjoy writing and you're decent at it. Like, what if we just put you here? Like, this is your strength. What if we put you in a place where you could use it? And so Bishop, like taking that chance on me, who like I didn't have a background in writing or anything.
Yeah.
He gave me the opportunity to pursue that, and my passion turned into my work, and my work was my passion. It just like this beautiful thing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm going to take a very quick break. I want to congratulate Michael Reif. He is our trivia winner. Thank you for listening, Michael. Also, another parishioner at St. Nick's. We had Father Damien in earlier. So thank you, Father Damien, for giving me this time here. Thank you, Michael, for listening. The question was, what city did the Israelites march around before the walls fell down? Correct answer there is Jericho. So now we are looking for, we got the trivia winner question. Our trivia question winner. There we go. Now we're looking for our Mother Teresa in My Own Words book winner. The way that you do that is if you call in and you're a new, well, actually, you don't have to be new. If you call in and you donate $100 or more, even if you are already a donor and you just put that on top of what you already have given, call 785-621 4110 and you will get that book. Let's see how many people we can get calling in right now. Let's make a run on it. Pick up your phone really quickly. 785-621 4110. Quick, get to it before anybody else does. $100 or more gets that book, but you can donate anything that you want. We still do have those matching funds started this afternoon with matching funds, I think somewhere around $5,000. So we'll see where we're at. Let's get them going. Let's get them used up. 785-621 4110. We're in talking with Katie Hamel here on our fall Care-a-thon, Joy of the Gospel. It's a blessing to have her in here because we get to talk about her background, what brought her into working for the diocese, and then you're now the editor of the Faith magazine. You were with the Register, which are both great productions. So what are some of the joys of being an editor for our entire diocesan magazine?
So I think honestly, the greatest joy, so kind of selfishly for me, one of the greatest joys of the magazine specifically is I learn so much. So Bishop and I will be like, the theme of this issue is going to be whatever. And then I do the background research. I start interviewing people and I learned so much. Like my faith has been amplified because of my work, because of what I'm learning. But also one of the greatest joys is the people I get to meet. There are so many people who, Bishop will be like, oh, like I met this person, call her. She's got this great story. And so I call this lady and she's got this like story of tragedy turned into just like trusting God and like this beautiful story. And I get to help her tell it. And so there's just this really, I don't know, it's like this intimate encounter with people who have a relationship with Christ. And I get to help share that story. And I love being able to do that.
Oh, wow. Something that maybe, and I don't remember if this was in Register or Faith magazine, but Roy Schmeidler, did you help with that one?
No, that must have been in the Register.
Okay, that must have been in the Register. Okay, but stories like that, his little girl in utero, it's a great story. If you haven't read it, I won't spoil everything for you. Go find the Register. You can find the Register online too. So is the Faith magazine online?
Yep. both
Okay.
on the diocesan website.
So go to the diocesan website. These are things that are worth your time and worth your read. I spend a lot of time on just pleasure reading, just, stuff that has nothing to do with spiritual life really at all. So it's good to sit down sometimes and just read those things that are like, oh, that actually does something good for my soul. It's not
It
just
does.
fun,
Yep.
but it's great. And especially like Roy Schmeidler, his wife, and their daughter, that story, it is an awesome story. Please go read it. But it's cool because you get to be like right in the midst of those types of stories.
Yep.
That is really wonderful. And so did I also see then that did you self-publish a children's book?
I did, yes.
Okay. Wow, that is really cool. Shameless, not plug, but like ask, because I've always kind of wanted to be a children's book writer. How did you even do that? It seems like really difficult. I actually looked into it one time and it was so difficult trying to get in with a publisher and stuff like that. So things like this just actually makes me really curious.
Okay.
Because it seems like, wow, that's so cool. There's people out there just doing it.
Well, it seems like I just did it, but it's been almost 3 years now since I started it. So I did write a book. It's called The Master Potter. It's a children's book. The day that I had the idea for the story was actually the day I found out I was pregnant with my first child.
Oh.
He's almost 2 now. His name is Ignatius. He's out there running around somewhere. But I found out I was pregnant, and I remember that day I went on a walk and I was just thinking about how amazing it is that like I had this gift. So I was going to have a baby one day. And, I was thinking about all the things I wanted him to know. I was like, I want him to know that God loves him. So then this idea for this story literally just popped into my brain. But I thought about the phrase that people like, oh, God made you. And I was like, well, he did, like he made all of us, but how did he make us? And I wanted like my child to know that God picked the color of his eyes and he picked how many strands of hair he was going to have. Like he put thought and intention into every single detail, like even the physical details. And so I wanted to write this story. So I went home that night and I wrote it down, just kind of like my brainstorming draft. I wrote it all down and then I saved it and I never looked at it again. And then my child was born 9 months later and I pulled it out and I was reading it to him. And my husband heard me reading it and he was like, Katie, do something with this. This is good. Wow. Do something. And I kind of struggled with some self-doubt. I was like, it's not that good. But he really encouraged me. So then I spent some time kind of like fleshing it out, like making it full or making it what I want it to be. That probably took, a month or so to just really like hone it. But then I found an illustrator because, like you said, getting into the publishing world with children's books is so difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I talked to several different traditional publishers and it was either not secular enough or with the Catholic publishing world specifically, they focus more on adult books, like more theology, more adult. So coming to them with the children's book, while it might be a good book, it's not in their repertoire. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to self-publish. And if I'm going to self-publish, that means I need to find my own illustrator because I am not an artist. I can paint with words, but that's it. I am a terrible artist.
No, I hear you. I can mess up a stick figure.
I know.
So
I am not good with that. So I called my mom, and my mom was huge in helping me write the book because she probably heard every draft that I ever wrote. But I called her, and she's like, well, we just got a new neighbor. His name's Greg Holdren. You should ask him. Greg Holdren is the dad of Joe Holdren and Alan Holdren, who both teach at St. John's in Beloit. And so I emailed Greg, never really had met him. I'd seen him around, knew him vaguely, but I emailed him. It's like, I wrote the story. I hear you're an artist. Would you be willing to help me? And he read it and he ran with it. He came up with the most beautiful hand-painted illustrations. They are gorgeous. Wow. And he did it all. He said, give me 9 months and I will have all your pages done. So 9 months later, he had my illustrations done. And then I figured out how to put it all together. And then I found a printer that I really liked and just like went through the process of different sizes, different formats, how I wanted it to look. That probably took about another 6 months. And then it was ready. It was done. Wow. So yeah, I officially published it or released it in October of this year.
That is so cool. I don't even know if this is one of our questions or not, but where can people find that at?
So if you go online to katiehamel.com, so KatieHamel.com, that's where I'm selling them right now. But eventually I do have some at the Messenger. There's a couple bookstores that have it, and we're hoping to get it, more places.
That is so cool. Awesome. We're going to get right back to this discussion here in just a minute. I want to remind everybody that you're listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Fall Care-a-thon, Joy of the Gospel. Still looking for our winner of this book. And to do that, call in and call 785-621-4110 and if you give $100 or more, you will get this book for the first person to do that. If you can't give $100, then you can still give. Whatever you can give would be great. So if you're listening right now, if you're on the interstate, it's going to be pretty hard to pull over, but maybe you can find an off ramp. Pull off to an off ramp. If you're driving along, get to your destination first. If you're at home and doing the dishes, dry your hands, pick up the phone. If you're on a walk, stop. If you're running, maybe wait till you're done and then call us. But anyway, whichever way, whatever you're doing, please consider pledging with us to help continue spreading the joy of the gospel. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110 to partner with us in spreading this good news. All right. We are going to get back to speaking with Katie Hamel. We just got done speaking about her book, The Master Potter, where you can find at katiehamel.com. And so it would be KATIEHAMEL.com. Pretty easy, but you can go find it there. Also, as she mentioned, go to Messenger. I don't know if you've heard me mention that or not, but if you haven't, then go to Messenger here in Hayes. They are the local Catholic books and gift store down on 10th Street, right off of Main, and ask them for a copy of The Master Potter. This would be a great Christmas book, wouldn't it? A great Christmas present. Throw that in there, and that would be great. So, Katie, let's get back to our discussion. You already said that when you went to go publish, obviously you were like, secularists were like, nope, it's Catholic or Catholic-y. And then even in the Catholic world, they were like, well, it's a children's book and we don't deal a whole lot with that, even if it is really good. But I imagine that was kind of important to you because you're talking about your child and thoughts that are coming through that. So how important was the Catholic faith in writing this book, and what comes through? Like you were saying, as a child, I was able to see the deeper meaning in that story. Yep. What are kids going to see through your story?
Okay. So the story, I did a reading at St. John's, went like a couple weeks back. And I read it to the upper grade school kids, so 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And at the very end, the first question I got, this little girl raised her hand. I don't know what her name was. I wish I did. But she raised her hand and she goes, this story makes me think of how God probably made me. And I was like, yes,
there you go.
That's the whole point. So faith was so huge in writing the story. So it's the Master Potter, which, that even comes from scripture, where he is the potter, we are the clay. And so through the story, you have the potter gets letters from people around the world who write him and request special things that he will make.
So
the
cool.
Letters meaning prayers, and I make a point to say he responds to every single letter. It might not be right away, and it might not be what you initially wrote the letter for, but he always responds, and it's always good. So showing that, we pray all the time, but we might not get the answer that we think that we're going to get. But then you go through, the potter is creating, he's molding this gift. He gets this letter from a husband and wife. They ask him for something really, really special. And so he goes about answering it. And he's answering with the creation of a child. And so you go through and he's picking the color of the eyes. He's painting the hair, and he knows the exact number of hairs that he has painted. And I always make a point to say, like, he does this with the child, and he paints the hair, and it's good. And he does this, he paints the eyes, and it's good. And you go through the whole process of creating the child. And at the very, very end is the first time the potter says it is very good.
Oh, so cool.
Going back to Genesis.
Yeah.
But then throughout it all, like, I think my favorite part, and I cry whenever I read this book to my kid, I cry. But there's this at the very end, the potter's created the child's finished, but he's not quite done. And the potter sets about, he breathes onto the child, and the child takes on a new life. And then he writes his name over the heart of his creation. And he makes a point to say, it is I who formed you. It is I who created you. It is I who call you by name. You are. And then there's a blank space for you to write the name of your child. But you are, and for me, when I read it to my son, I say, you are Ignatius, and you are mine. And for Ignatius, he hears me, his mom say it, like, you are mine. But then there's this like concept, for when he's older, when he's like, the potter is God, and God made me, and God gave me my name. Just like this deeper meaning to the story. And it's deeper, but it's true too.
Yeah.
Like, that is what happened. God did make him and knit him in all this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of the story. And like, as you can hear me talking about it, there's a lot of like references to scripture throughout it.
That is so precious. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How many pages is it?
So it's like 30 some, but there's I think there's 13 illustrations to go with it. And like I said, Greg, he is a brilliant artist. He hand painted everything. And he snuck religious stuff. And like, I think one of my favorite pictures, he painted the master potter creating the child. And in the background, there's a fireplace and then the mantle. And on the mantle, there's a crucifix. There's a picture of Mary. And I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you put those there? And he said, well, everybody who has a fireplace puts pictures of their loved ones on their mantle. And wouldn't God want to look at his family?
Oh my goodness.
And so, and Greg was brilliant. He snuck so much beautiful imagery into it. Yeah.
Wow. Jerome, save me a copy. I think I'm going to need a copy of that for my kids. We have millions of books, but this is one that I need.
I hope you like it.
Oh, absolutely. I just hope there's one left by the time I get there. I mean, if not, that's a good problem to have. But oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. We're talking with Katie Hamel about her book, The Master Potter. And this is an absolutely awesome talk. So thank you for your time here. We're listening to the Fall Care-a-thon, Joy of the Gospel. If you have a question for Katie, please call us at 785-621-5061. That's 785-621-5061. If you'd like to make a pledge, call 785-621-4110. We still need that first person to get the ball rolling down the hill for this hour so that we can start using up more of those matching funds. We're probably around $94,000 in total for funds that have been raised so far. We've got probably around $5,000 or something like that in matching funds. So we need to use those up to get to our total goal of $125,000 today at the end of our Care-a-thon. Please help us to do that. And if you're patient with me, we'll get to another trivia question in here in just about 5 minutes or so, something like that. But first, I want to get back to speaking with Katie and her book and just the different things that come out of that. So, Katie, we talked a bit about the process of writing the book and all that stuff, but there were probably just not just like, okay, well, it takes a while to publish. It takes a while to, and a good problem is, it's going to take a while to get some pictures drawn and stuff like that. What are some other struggles or barricades you had to get over to be able to get this in production?
Okay, so beyond like the practical that you just said, I struggled with self-doubt a lot. I just, I wrote it and I was like, it's not good. It's not good enough. And I really, really just personally struggled with, I don't know, self-doubt and then fear of failure. I was like, I'm going to write this book, I'm going to put all this work into it, and then no one's going to buy it. Like I will have wasted years. So I really struggled with that. And my biggest cheerleader was my husband, actually. He was the one who was like, it is good, pursue it. It's good. And he always told me when we got married and we talked about having kids, I asked him if he ever thought I should give up writing. And he said, no. He was always been a big fan. He said, you do what you need to do, but don't ever stop writing because you're good at it. And that's always what he told me. And I was like, there's other writers that are better, or like, I'm not that great. And he was always just quick to like knock those down and say like, no, like you're good and you have this gift, like use it. And so like I said, like I had the story in my drafts forever. And it wasn't until Nathaniel heard me read it where he was like, why is this in your draft file? Like, get it out of there. Do something with it. So he was really the one who helped me combat my self-doubt and my fear of failure and really just like kind of shoved me out of my comfort zone. It's like, no, pursue this, like do something with it. But I would say like it was just that fear of failure, you know, and the rejections that you would get from the different publishers. You're like, yeah, you know, we don't do this. Like,
Sure.
you know, that was really hard to swallow, like really kind of hurt my pride a little bit. And I had to just let go of my pride so that I could see this project through to the end.
Absolutely. Now, I imagine that being you are an editor, you probably didn't need an editor. I think you probably took care of that
I
yourself.
did.
Did you also have your husband, that's awesome. And that's so fantastic that he saw that and was like, no, listen, you really got to do something. Did you have other people that just kind of peer reviewed it to give you their opinion or anything like that?
Yeah. So, well, Darlene Stotman, she actually does a lot of proofreading for the diocese, and she is a wonderful, wonderful lady. And so I emailed her. I was like, this isn't diocesan business, but like, would you read this for me? So she read it, and she was able to come in with like that copy editing eye, and she kind of helped me with just like the logistics of laying it out. But as far as like concept, my sisters. So I have 4 sisters, Alex, Sarah, Annie, and Veronica. And I sent it to them and my sister-in-law, Jordy. And I was just like, read this. Like, what do you think? Like, is it good? Is it bad? And like, I mean, they read it and they all are moms. And so they were able to just like give me feedback. And my one sister, Sarah, she's very, very honest, even when you don't want her to be.
We need those people in our lives.
She was wonderful. And it was one of those things. So I told him, I was like, what do you think? And, you know, they're my sisters. They love me. So like, it's great. I'm like, but no, but really, like, what do you think?
Like, I need a Sarah opinion. You said Sarah, right?
I did. And Sarah, like, and when she was like, it's good, I knew that it was good because she told me it was good.
Yeah.
And she doesn't lie and she does not sugarcoat things either.
Yeah. That's kind of like my wife.
Yep.
She'll tell me how it is. I love you, honey.
Yeah. I was like, do you really want me to be honest? I'm like, yes.
I don't know. Let me think about this.
Like, let me go get some, like a pillow to hide behind. My sisters and my mom really like, she kind of helped me like hone some of the concept because at first I had this, I'm like, what do you think about this? And my mom is really good at like being a sounding board. So I'd read it to her and she'd be like, oh, like that sounds kind of funny. Like, what if you took this angle? And you would think, you know, a children's book doesn't seem like that difficult to write, but when you're trying to like tell this deeper story beneath like just like the concept, it does take a team. It takes a team to like figure out how the story will be told. But really, it was my sisters and my mom and my dad who really were, you know, kind of like, aside from Nathaniel, they were really like the backbone and my biggest cheerleaders.
So how do you weave that? Because as you were talking there, I was thinking, you know, yeah, you do have to with children to get that deeper meaning without being too abstract to where you're like, well, no, this is what I was going for, you know, so that you're not just like, great, I just published a book that is way too heady for kids because they didn't get it. You know, so how do you kind of meld those two together where you're not just like rewriting the Bible, but you're putting it in a beautiful story where kids can actually come to it, like you said, that little girl on her own and be like, oh.
Okay, so that actually, I credit the ability to write beautiful, profound truths simply to actually Faith Magazine. Because my first time ever really like trying to take this big, beautiful thing and make it not less beautiful, but more relatable was actually, it was a Faith Magazine issue. It was called Discovering the Beauty of the Mass. And it was when we took the Mass and how profound and beautiful the Mass is, and we broke it into the different parts. So like the introduction, the liturgy, the Eucharist, and then the conclusion. And we were like, here's this big, beautiful thing. And you take the catechism and like you read, like I read the catechism, like, what is this? It's too heavy. I can't understand it. So I tried to take these big truths, these big concepts, and then make them so that your average grade schooler, that was my child.
That's okay. I
don't
love
know
it.
if you heard my child.
No, it's kind of like when you're at mass, you know, like if your parish is quiet, then it's dying.
I know.
Now, obviously, we're not at mass, but I still love it. Kids are the best thing ever.
Well, she's out there screaming.
Yeah, it's okay.
But anyways, you take these big truths and then you just try to write it in a way that's still beautiful. It's still profound, but the average person could read it. Because sometimes I think we have this habit, you know, the Catholic Church is so big, it's so beautiful, it's wonderful, but the average person off the streets can't appreciate the beauty because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
So if you try to like reframe it and you write it in a way that's relatable, so this average person can read it and be like,
Yeah.
This is why it's beautiful, because you can have truth and truth can be beautiful, but if it's too heavy, if it's too big, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mhm.
So like when I was writing the story, it's like, okay, this is the truth. I want, like, my whole thing with writing the book was I want kids to know that God made them on purpose and for a purpose. Like there's no accident when it
Yeah.
comes to a child. And so I'm like, that's what I want kids to know. So like, how can I write this? So I kind of like, I pretended I was the little girl I was writing the story for. So it's like when I was little, like, what did I want to know? Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to know that God made me and he made me on purpose. And like every detail of who I am, he intended. And so I was like writing it for me in a way, I guess.
It's kind of like beautiful cliff notes.
Yeah.
So, like, have you ever read any of St. John Paul II's writings? It's,
Oh
my
gosh.
goodness,
Yeah.
like Love and Responsibility.
Mhm.
That's very heady. The
Yep.
guy was so brilliant.
He was.
And once you learn how to read it, I think it obviously becomes easier, but it's kind of like that. Like you don't want to take away from the beauty of his writing. But for some of us, myself included, you kind of need the guy who writes and tells you, okay,
This is what he meant.
this is Love and Responsibility, shortened, condensed, and in layman's terms.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, good. I can
I want that
understand
one.
that. So that's kind of the same
Yeah,
thing you're doing
exactly.
with this kid's book.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And I love how you said, you put yourself into that, because I think that's what a good writer would do is I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the person reading it
Mhm.
so that I can see what they would be feeling
Yep.
and understanding at that moment.
Mhm.
That's awesome. All right. We are talking with Katie Hamel about her book, The Master Potter. You are listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Fall Care-a-thon, Joy of the Gospel. This book here that we're giving away this hour is Mother Teresa in My Own Words. And it's titled that because it is written by Mother Teresa. So if you would like to get this, and it's wonderful because, it's kind of like one of those little daily readers. You could just have little nuggets every day, read just a little section. There are also some prayer cards in there, a litany of trust and stuff like that. For those looking or watching online on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube, we've got that right there so you can see it. But if you are the first person to call in with a $100 donation or more, call 785-621-4110 and you will get that book. We will get it to you, put your name on it. But you also don't have to just donate $100 or more. If you're someone who can donate $25, that would be awesome also. If you are someone who can donate even more than that, whatever you guys can give us, please join with us in spreading the joy of the gospel. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. After all the times that I've said that, sometimes I still have to look over at my paper because I'm saying it and I'm like, oh man, mind blank. So call 785-621-4110. All right. This has been an awesome conversation. So now I think I kind of want to get to your support background. We already talked about your sisters and Sarah, who everybody needs a good, honest Sarah in their life. Your mom and other people like that. What other roles did your family or those around you play in your support of writing this book, prayer, or anything like that?
Okay, so prayer was a constant with this, just prayer for God's will. My husband and I, we pray as a family with our kids every night.
Good.
And we always make a point in prayer. Nathaniel leads us. We always pray in our Father together. And then he always just kind of prays from the heart. And he always makes a point to say, like, let God's will be revealed to us and let us say yes. Like, let us be brave enough to say yes to what God wants for our lives. And Nathaniel made a point to also prayers for Katie, for courage, for the self-doubt to go away, for success, we prayed for success too. So we made a point to pray through every stage. When it comes to support from my family, like I said, my mom is really supportive with the concept, and she was the one who suggested Greg as the illustrator. My sisters were my beta readers, they were the ones that read it first. My dad too. So my dad, he's actually from Hayes. James Greenwood is his name.
Okay.
I always say that he went to TMP. He attended TMP. I don't know how often he went to class, but he was a student, TMP. But my dad, he's not a man of many words, but he read it and I think my dad being so proud of me, like that in and of itself was such encouragement and support because he isn't a man of many words, but he was so proud of this book that I wrote. And it's a
That's
kid's
awesome.
book, like my dad doesn't read kids' books, but he read it. Like every draft I brought home, he read. He looked at all of the pictures and he was actually, I debated, there's this one line. So when the Potter's painting the hair, for a minute I had like, I put a number, like a physical number in the book, like he painted this many strands of hair. And then I took it out and my dad was mad. He's like, put the number back in. Like, he's like, God knows how many hairs, like put the number back in. And he was very
Adamant, huh?
adamant that the number needed to be in the book. So I put it back in and he was like, it is good. You can proceed.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So like my dad was really, I don't know. It was really wonderful to have just knowing that he was proud of me was a
Yeah.
huge, huge thing. And then when it came to, okay, the book was here. What do we do with it now? My husband's family was so remarkable in helping me promote it. There was like a market for vendors and craftspeople out in the Western Kansas area. And they like got me there. They got my table set up. They helped me watch my kid. They helped with my kids. They sat with me, just so wonderful in helping me like get the news out there. So they've like my in-laws have been so tremendous in that. And then just really like my Dawson people who used to read my column in the paper. I like emailed some people like, hey, this book's out. Like, would you want it? And just the support of the diocese in and of itself, just with, past readers, coworkers, just the connections I made through faith in the register. They've been wonderful and like following me and supporting me in this like new venture that I'm taking.
Wow, that is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, really quickly, I love our conversation, but I want to thank Leonard Schoenberger from Elvis, donated $100. All right, thank you. We had Leonard on earlier this week. Leonard, thank you for listening, and thank you for all of the prayers you're doing. I think he even said that he has Mary at his house right now, the statue of Mary, and so that is really cool. So Leonard, thank you for listening. Thank you for your donation of $100. Leonard will get that book, Mother Teresa in My Own Words. That's Mother Teresa in My Own Words. Thank you so very much. We'll make sure we get that there. And because of our other donors who gave those matching funds, Leonard's gift becomes a $200 donation. So join with Leonard and myself in supporting this station. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. All right. We're talking with Katie Hamel about her book, The Master Potter. So now I'm not going to liken these two things together. I understand that your book is not an icon. But they often say that icons are not painted, they're prayed. Mm-hmm. Is there some of that? Is this book, I would say, icon-esque, because it's not an icon, but is that kind of some of what's in this book also? Is, was there part of that in the process? I mean, I know you said you prayed daily, but through the writing of it, did you find yourself also just in that process of kind of putting prayer into the words themselves or anything?
And so it's going to sound weird and other writers will understand this, but sometimes when you're writing and it's something theological, you don't feel like you're the one writing. Like it really feels like the words are like pouring through you, but they're not your words. You're just the hand. And so when I was writing this, there was a few times, like sometimes when I write something, I have to I pray before I start, and I pray to let go of my pride. Like I pray to like not make it about me. Like I want the work to speak for itself in a way. And I don't want like my name or my ego or whatever to get in the way. I don't want it to interfere. And so when it comes to writing, like I feel like for me, I wait to be inspired by something. Like I don't sit and try to force the words to come out, because then it's me, like it's my pride, it's my words. So I always like pray. I'm like, I pray to be inspired. And then when I am inspired, I just pray to like let go of anything that I want it to be and just let it become whatever it's supposed to become. And I know that sounds kind of hokey.
No, I understand that.
But that's it is like I wrote it, but I didn't write it. Like the concept came from scripture, it came from like what I knew to be true growing up, that God made me on purpose, and so like it was all like part of something that God had already told the story. I was just like writing in a way that a little kid could understand. So that, I mean, that really did play a huge part
Yeah.
into it.
That is so cool. You're listening to Katie Hamel talk about her book, The Master Potter. You can find it down at Messenger or at katiehamel.com. We are on our fall Care-a-thon, Joy of the Gospel, and we are appreciating that you guys are listening to us. We appreciate that you guys support us, that you're helping us to put these radio waves out there so that others can hear it. And this is such a wonderful topic because since our the theme, there's that hard word I was looking for, since our theme is joy of the gospel, what a joyful topic to be talking about, just talking about the love of the Father, the master potter, and the work that he puts into us, and how much he loves each one of us. And that's just such an awesome thing. So please continue to listen. Please continue to support us. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. Katie, something that I love is, I don't remember the guy's name, and I think I've mentioned it before, but there's a video out there, and it's probably like 5 minutes long, and it talks about how we are each a masterpiece of God, and how a master painter will put all of his, he actually puts his self into his painting. So that's really kind of cool. When you're talking about your book and the message that comes out of your book, and to really understand that too through it, that every single one of us is a masterpiece, and helping kids to see that, because actually what your book hits is theology of the body.
Yep, I know.
As we're sitting here talking about it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is theology of the body for youngsters.
Yep.
We have it for the adults, we have it for teens. I'm like, now you're like, oh, here you go.
Here, we're gonna start them young.
Absolutely,
they know when they're little.
Know your inherent dignity.
Yep.
That is so awesome. Thank you for doing that. It's so cool. We've got about 10 minutes left. Can you give us, if there's something we haven't covered about your book, about the writing, your inspiration or anything else, and then also anything you want to talk about with your job with the diocese, if we can maybe just go there.
Well, real quick, you mentioned Leonard called in. I just worked with Leonard on a story. He's a wonderful person. Never have met him in real life, but we texted, and I know what statue of Mary he has at his house right now. So wonderful, wonderful man.
Absolutely.
But no, with the book, I guess really the only thing left is just the art. I wish I brought a copy with me so that you could see it.
I'm just going to look this up real quick.
Are
there pictures online if I can look?
Yeah, if you go to Katie.
Obviously you're not going to put the whole book because that would be not smart, but
the art, so like I said, Greg, he really was an answer to prayer, because this book, came about, and I was like, God, if you want this book to be something, give me an artist. And then Greg Coldren just showed up, and he is brilliant. We sat down together. I gave him my story, and he just had this little scrap piece of lined paper, and he started sketching. And I was in awe, because even his little pen on lined paper sketches were beautiful. And it was one of those things he asked for guidance. He's like, well, what do you think? I'm like, I'm not an artist. I am a writer, but I'm not an artist. So you run
just go with this.
And oh my gosh, so there's this one illustration where there's a workbench. And Greg's like, well, if the potter is God, what kind of things would God have on his workbench? So he put an apple tree. He put the key of St. Peter. He has a little illustration of the creation of Adam in the background.
Oh, no way.
He's got an orange, just all of this stuff. And I look at Greg, and I'm so blown away by how talented he is. I wish I had that. I wish I could paint like that. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking at there's two pictures on there. It looks like the front cover, and then another one with the little birdhouse and stuff. And what's really neat about it is, if you're getting in your head, children's book and stuff like that, it's actually, so it's not cartoonish per se. It's actually like a
it's the classic.
I don't know. Yes. It's a classical type of pictures. So that's really neat.
Well, and when I called my mom, and I was like, I need an illustrator. And there's so many books out now. They're great, but they're a little bit more of that kind of more generated art, that you can do on iPad, and it's still beautiful, but it's like, this story is timeless. So I want the art to match that. Like, I want the art to also be timeless. Like a book that you could have picked up 100 years ago and the art is beautiful, and you'll pick up 100 years from now and it's still beautiful because it's this classic feel. And so really when it came to writing this book, it really was a lesson in humility too, just because it wasn't just me who made it come to life. It was my support system. It was Greg with his talent. It was just different people I would talk to and be like, hey, how do you publish a book? And they're like, oh, we don't know, but like, here's some ideas. It's just like, it was so much more than me that made this book come to life.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And so it really was it was just so wonderful. And I'm so grateful too for just the Diocese of Salina, because my writing took off really with my job at the diocese. And so I feel like if I never had the job at the diocese with the magazine and with the newspaper and just with Bishop Vinke, I never would have written a book later. It all fell together the way it was supposed to fall together. So,
wow.
And if Bishop had never introduced me to Nathaniel, I would never have had my biggest cheerleader. So.
No kidding. That is awesome. Yeah. Can you, for anybody out there, it doesn't have to be writing a book, but for just discovering maybe our talents within. Mm-hmm. I know this isn't on our pre-scripted questions or anything, but that's how I roll. And so, can you give anybody some advice as to just some of the things I know you said you had to overcome self-doubt and stuff like that. But how do you really kind of put your passions into, I think maybe God's calling me to do this. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think when it comes to our passions, like, we have God-given talents, and because they're God-given, sometimes, the devil likes to trip us up, and so of course he's going to put these net of lies. Like, he's the master of lies. So of course he's going to like plague you with like, you're not good enough, like this isn't good, and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it really just came into letting go of all of that, like putting the blinders on and just trusting that when people like Sarah or people like Nathaniel told me that something was good, believing them, just like accepting it at face value, like this is truth and it is good, and it is good. And so like, I think, we have these God-given talents, and he places our talents, our desires, everything on our heart for a reason. And so I look back, and I told you that I've always been writing since I was a little girl. But another thing is I had Andrew Newold for my theology teacher growing up. But I had wonderful theology formation at St. John's and then later at Benedictine. But because I'm a big sister too, I read to my little siblings all the time. I have 4 sisters, I have 7 brothers. And so like, I grew up talking to little kids, and I grew up learning about the faith, and my siblings and we get into debates. We have a little family group chat, and we debate all the time about theology. Like, we just had a predestination conversation like last week.
Oh, nice. Can I join these?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like, I think my brothers like to just make drama just to like,
they just want to see if you can.
They like to see things burn.
Oh yeah.
But we get into these huge,
boys.
It's annoying. We get into these huge debates. And I think all of this, like, you look at the passion God gave me, but then you look at the people he put in my life and the experiences that I had, and it all just kind of like came together. And it didn't just come together on accident. God is the master potter, like he crafted everything. And I think when it comes to your passions and pursuing them, I think it's just really an openness to like, God, what do you want me to do with this? And then when he answers, or he puts certain people in your life or certain events in your life, you just be brave enough to say, okay, like, I'm going to go, like, will you go with me? And he will, like, he will always go with you.
Wow.
And so I think it's really just like being courageous enough to say, okay, like, I'll go.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Is there any way we can get your family in here real quick?
Yeah.
Would they want to?
If they're out there.
Can we? All right. While Katie is grabbing her family really quick, I want to remind you that you're listening to Divine Mercy Radio. We're on our fall Care-a-thon, and that is the joy of the gospel. And so I want to thank Austin and Laurel Klaus. They just donated $250. And so that makes it $500 with our matching funds. I wanted to bring Katie's family in here really quickly. So now, what's his name again?
This is Ignatius. He'll be 2 on January 1st.
That's Ignatius and
Miriam.
And your husband? Nathaniel. All right. She's talked about you a lot. It was all good things. So we're on live here really quick, but I wanted people to be able to see the family. And also wanted to meet the guy that Bishop actually like set you guys up. Like that's a pretty special thing, man.
I think it was my punishment for being 5 minutes late to mass.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so very much for upholding your wife in this, man. And what an awesome testament of a husband. And you guys have a wonderful family. Thanks for bringing him in to say hi to us.
Yeah,
All right. Hey, continue praying for us. Is there any message that you guys want to leave us with today?